So a familiar name, Jeremiah Williams, former Temple guard, spent 2 years there, averaged more than 9 points, 4 assists to 2 turnovers, steal and a half per game. Not a great shooter, 27% from three, 64% from the free throw line, 42% from the field. Illinois showed a lot of interest in him last year before he committed to Iowa State. He's a Chicago Simeon graduate, spent time at St. Lawrence High School as well in the state. But the biggest question here, Derek, is health, because he had an Achilles tendon injury. He tore his Achilles back in October. Still recovering from that. I saw TJ Otzelberger had a quote of he's still got a ways to go to be healthy to start the 23-24 season. So I get it. Jeremiah Williams, when healthy, helps Illinois as a table setter. He helps them as somebody who can initiate offense. But obviously this is not the kind of player and health situation that you can count on as like, hey, this is taking us to another level, even if he gives you a decent proven option if he's healthy.
For sure. I think big picture is a guy that would have, to my knowledge, 3 years of eligibility left when you include the injury last year, so a medical redshirt, and then his freshman season was the COVID year, the free COVID year. So bringing someone like that into the mix who could have 3 seasons, could come in even if he wasn't ready physically to play this year or play all that much this year. And another dynamic is because he'd be a 2-time transfer, needs a waiver to even be eligible for this year to play. So that's another factor as you try to look and see and evaluate how good of a pivot is this after Ray J. Dennis. So there are some big qualifiers there. Is he going to be healthy? Is he going to be eligible? When I look at the player, like you said, like they really liked him last year. They were disappointed to lose him to Iowa State. They felt like, while a guy like Courtney Ramey was probably going to be hard for them to sell with Sky Clark and Jaden Epps in the mix, they thought they could have gotten Jeremiah Williams. Now he decides to go to Iowa State and probably would have been their starting point guard last fall. I know that was what was reported. He's tough. He's a big guard with some size at 6'4". I thought he was a really, really good defender. He can facilitate, I think, both in a primary and secondary playmaking type of role. Can get downhill too. But, yeah, the shooting is a big knock, especially from beyond the arc. He's got some mid-range to him as something he's capable of doing. But the outside shot is something that he does need to improve on. But, yeah, kind of to circle back is I've even heard at times, and, again, they were kind of strapped based on how some of these NBA decisions were going to go. But in an ideal world, they would have been – they liked the thought of, at some point in the offseason, hey, what if we get Ray J. Dennis or another impact-type point guard, and then we also get Jeremiah Williams as insurance for this year, and then kind of as a long-term play for stability. The fact that as of right now, as you look forward and say, hey, is this your starting point guard? Can you even play this year? I get why there's a lot of angst and concerns around that. So I know that Illinois likes him, and for the reasons that we've discussed, but there's some reasons why there's angst attached to that.
Yeah, I mean, you went from potentially one of the best point guards in the portal to one with question marks. I think you and I like the player. I think he fits what they want. You wish he was a little bit better of a shooter, but I think he's a Division I point guard. I think he can be a high major point guard. Obviously, if he was going to start at a program like Iowa State, I think that'll do on an Illinois roster that otherwise, Derek, is pretty loaded. Given the strong otherwise offseason Brad Underwood has had. I mean, we're sitting here yesterday talking about the excitement of Coleman Hawkins and Terrence Shannon back. That's still exciting because you have a good team. But I think we're talking about being a great team, you needed a point guard that you can count on, and I just don't know if Williams is that. So I want to put this out there, Derek. Like, Williams has to get the waiver. We got to see if he's healthy. I'll be fascinated to talk to Brad Underwood about all this when we get him next. But say that's not an option right at the beginning of the season. What does it look like with Justin Harmon, Terrence Shannon, Ty Rogers, Sincere Harris? What does it look like initiating offense with this team? And what do they need from the rest of the roster if they don't have a proven point guard here?
Unfortunately, it looks a lot like last year at the surface level in terms of relying on Terrence, who's not a pure point guard. You mentioned some of those other names, Harmon, who I think our guy Mike Latulip presented some obvious hesitation in terms of saying, could Harmon play significant minutes for point guard, in terms of next year too. I do like that Ty is going to have another year under his belt, and I think that in spots he can play the point guard position. Now, if Williams were to say not be healthy or not to get the waiver, is there a world where Ty Rodgers is your starting point guard on opening night? I think as we sit right now, I wouldn't rule it out. I think,
which is fine if he's surrounded by great shooting, Derek. Right? Like
yes.
That's the thing that needs to happen. Like if say I would be confident with Rodgers as my initiator, right? But
yes.
He's got to be surrounded by great shooting, and that means Shannon has to be a better shooter. Coleman Hawkins has to be a better shooter. Domask and Guerriere have to continue to be above average to good shooters. Luke Goody has got to be impactful. Harmon has to be good. So maybe Harmon would play a little bit of lead guard as well, but I really like Ty Rodgers. I hope he gets a lot of playing time next year, but people are going to go under screens with him, right? He's going to have to bully ball this thing and spray it all over the place. That means other people got to shoot well.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. 100% on that. I think that it does help to have some of those guys like Domask, who are just a really good secondary playmaker. And as you talk to people, and I think that just as I kind of think about it, like Coleman coming back, not getting Ray J. Dennis, Coleman's return is even more important because of his playmaking. Like, I know that it's not ideal, and Coleman would even tell you this, for him to be in a point guard type of role, trying to be the facilitator all the time. But I think that because of his ability to see the floor, because of his skill, because he can step out and do some things as an orchestrator, that helps alleviate some of – make no mistake, you wanted to get Ray J with Coleman and Terrence to be, let's go win the Big Ten, let's go on this huge run in March potentially. But in terms of trying to fallback option or just trying to see where it goes next is Coleman does alleviate that some. And there was a world where you miss on Ray J today and you didn't get Coleman back yesterday, and that really would have hurt you from a playmaking standpoint. So that is, at least you can take a little bit of solace in that. I think it's also a lot on Brad. Like, we talked a lot about it for good reason. Like, Illinois having to pivot with its system in the middle of last year and to go 5 out, then the spread. And I still think spread has limitations when you got – I wonder if it works the way that he has orchestrated it or wants it in the Big Ten, period. And then when you have new pieces, when you have guys that haven't played together all that much, that there are some limitations within that. So can he put together an offense that creates more cohesion, that creates more opportunities to not have stagnation and not to have some of the issues that they went through last year, even if you didn't hit on your A option at point guard, because obviously they didn't. So that falls back on Brad Underwood's plate to figure it out, and we'll see how that goes.
Two names I didn't bring up. Maybe I should bring up one of these guys a little bit more. And I was reminded of this today because even I forget about him sometimes. Dre Gibbs-Allhorn. Derek, I don't know if you want to go with a true freshman. Like, we saw that last year with guys who maybe were even a little bit more proven. But Dre Gibbs-Allhorn, does he figure in here? I mean, Nicolo Moretti, I think, is a year away, but is Gibbs-Allhorn a name we should talk about a little bit more at this point? Given, I mean, the other parts of the roster I really like, Derek, but this is a void, and he's a talented player.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair, and I think it's great that Illini fans got to see how talented he was once he made that move to overtime elite and being able to show off his skill set and everything. But I think people need to remember he was also part of a Mount Verde team where he barely played. He was not playing a whole lot. He's been a guy since coming back from that injury about a year and a half ago or whatnot, that it's been a little up and down with him. He's had some moments like EYBL circuit last year where he was the MVP of the entire league in one weekend at Indianapolis, and then his summer was really a lot more of an up and down roller coaster ride. So you're talking about a guy that would be a true freshman, that would be not a true point guard. He's a combo guard, and Brad has even said through his recruitment and once he was signed that they really liked what he did in ball screens and think that he can tap into that as he continues to progress as a player. But I mean, you're back in a situation, it could be Jaden Epps again.